let's get a little bit more granular then, because let's just say the Yankees and the Red Sox do play a game in Tampa, right? It's not like they give Aaron Judge the key and he opens up, and then JD Martinez brings his bats for everybody. There's going to be a whole huge staff that has to operate the game and operate the facility. How many people is baseball ready to quarantine? How many people is baseball ready to put in quarantine for a month?
Well, the big question, Rich, I think, is not how many people are they willing to quarantine. It's, are they going to quarantine? That right now is part of this. And I think the fact that they're looking at Arizona, Texas, and Florida is not by accident. There are going to be stay-at-home orders that are lifted, if not have already been lifted in each of those states. And the idea that they are going to be opened up, I think, appeals in some way to baseball, because I think the notion of quarantine in places away from their home was just a non-starter for too many players. And when you're trying,
so they're just
going to
hold on a second. So they're just going to roll the dice that that everybody's healthy walking in. I mean, like,
no. Here's how it would work. I think in order to make this work, you're going to need to start with the spring training. I think the spring training is going to be spring training 2.0. I've been calling it. I think it's going to be at least 3 weeks. I thought it was going to be a little less, but players seem pretty gung-ho that they need 3+ weeks, especially pitchers, to ramp back up.
Uh-huh.
And during those 3 weeks, I think there's probably going to be a quarantine period there where players are going to get tested pretty consistently, where if anybody shows signs, he's going to be quarantined away from everybody else, and where you're essentially going to get your baseline right there. I think once they go to the pods, if that is in fact how they do it, it's probably going to be one of those situations where, yes, you stay at the hotel, yes, you go to the ballpark, but I don't think they're going to have anyone outside checking where players are going at night, for example. I don't think there are going to be severe restrictions in place. I think they're going to say to them, be smart. I think they're going to adhere to social distancing protocols, especially, like, you're not going to have guys hanging out in clubhouses for hours before games. You're going to have coaches, especially the ones who are in their 60s, or managers who are in their 60s or 70s, separated from players pretty significantly. Like, they have to be judicious about something like that, because while the math tells us, and while the statistics tell us that the players who are 20 to 40 years old and typically in good shape and without pre-existing conditions run a very low chance of having something really deeply affect them, the same can't be said for the older men who are going to be involved here, and for the more vulnerable ones. And that is something you have to take into account.
I mean, Dusty Baker, he's 70 plus, right? I mean, so.
Yep, Joe Madden too.
What if a player says no? What if a player's like, what if honestly, what if Garrett Cole and his $300 million says, I don't want to do it? And Clayton Kershaw, who's I could go Carlos Correa, who's a cancer survivor.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly,
I don't think it's going to happen with Garrett Cole. I don't think it's going to happen with Clayton Kershaw.
No, I just use somebody who's really famous and is well paid.
No, I know,
and necessary for a team to win.
It is bound to happen with someone, and I think that if a player is concerned about his health, then it is more than reasonable for him to say no. But I think the policy that's being enacted around the country right now is that if you're back to work, then you're expected to be at work. It's a really hard thing for workers, though, to hear that. And I don't envy the player who is going to have to fight to get his money if he tries to stay at home, and it may well end up being a losing battle.
So what do you think, Jeff? Time frame it for me, because if we're talking July 2nd, you're talking 3 weeks of spring training. You're talking about test. I mean, they're going to have to test, right? I mean, like,
oh my God, yes. The testing, the testing is a huge part of this. You can have everything in place, Rich. You can have a plan from the league. You can have support from the owners. You can have an agreement with the players. You can have facilities ready. You can have a schedule in place.
Right.
If you do not have testing, not just testing for the players, but enough testing throughout the country where if Major League Baseball is running through thousands of tests a week, maybe even more, that it doesn't look like they're being taken from those who really are in need of it. If you don't have that testing and that level of testing, the whole thing falls apart.
Jeff, I appreciate the time, man, from the conversation about Ricky, which was a wonderful, I guess, wormhole for us to go be pulled into. I mean, honestly, we can go for another half an hour about the possibilities of all this stuff, but it's going to have to be right now, right? Like literally mid-May, an announcement will have to be made, and then we're going. Right, to prepare and prep to get games by July 2nd?
I think
is that the
toward
time frame?
the end, let's put it this way. There will be an announcement. If something's happening, there's going to be an announcement in May. And if there is not an announcement in May, what we're looking at is a late season World Cup style tournament.
Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.